I just ask that you remember me, Lord, when you enter your kingdom. Truly, I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise. What did Jesus do in the 3 days between his death and resurrection? Where was Jesus in the 3 days between his death and resurrection? The four Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John reported that Jesus was crucified for about 6 hours before passing away. In the final moment, he said the immortal words, "It is finished." As recorded in the book of John 19, verse 30, he then bowed his head and gave up his spirit. His body remained on the cross for only a short time before being taken down and prepared for burial by Joseph of Arimathea, with the help of Nicodemus, one of his followers. 3 days later, his body and spirit reunited, and he rose from the dead. After his resurrection, he appeared to his disciples, starting with Mary Magdalene, and then ascended to heaven. However, many wondered what happened in the 3 days between his death and resurrection. Where was Jesus, and what did he do? This episode will try to answer these questions. The Bible, particularly the Synoptic Gospels, does not provide a comprehensive account of Jesus' activities during these 3 days, also known as the harrowing of hell or descent into hell. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John focus primarily on the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion and his resurrection. The period between his death and resurrection is more rooted in theological interpretations and traditions than in explicit biblical narratives. However, we can understand this crucial period. One of the clearest revelations about Jesus' whereabouts in the 3 days of death can be obtained from his conversation on the cross. According to the Bible, Jesus was crucified alongside 2 thieves. One of them asked Jesus to remember him when Jesus entered his kingdom. To this, Jesus responded, "Truly, I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise." This implies that after his death, Jesus went to paradise or heaven. This makes sense because at his death, Jesus declared the commitment of his spirit into God's hands, which, as we know, could only be in a place of bliss and eternal love, that is, heaven. But there is another interesting account of Jesus' whereabouts. In 1 Peter 3, verses 18 to 20, it says that Christ suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring us to God. He was put to death in the body but made alive in the spirit, in which he also went and preached to the spirits in prison, who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. This passage can be interpreted in 2 ways. First, it can be understood to mean that Jesus, at some point between his death and resurrection, went to hell or Hades and made some announcement to the spirits imprisoned there. From this perspective, these spirits Jesus addressed could be demons or humans, or even rebellious angels. It is likely that the spirits mentioned in the passage are fallen angels who were imprisoned for violating God's law. Together with Lucifer, who deceived them and turned them against their God, the reference to Noah's flood indicates that the violation occurred before Noah's time. Although the passage does not exactly tell us what Jesus said to the imprisoned spirits, it seems unlikely to have been a message of redemption, as Hebrews 2, verse 16 states that angels cannot be saved. It is likely that Jesus proclaimed and declared his victory over Satan and his followers. So, from this perspective, Jesus went to hell to announce his triumph and declare his victory over death and Satan. Another biblical passage that tells us about Jesus' whereabouts and activities in the 3 days between his death and resurrection is Ephesians 4, verses 8 to 10. It says, "When he ascended on high, he took many captives and gave gifts to his people." What does he ascended mean except that he also descended to the lower, earthly regions? He who descended is the very one who ascended higher than all the heavens in order to fill the whole universe. This is interpreted as meaning that after securing their salvation on the cross, Jesus gathered all the redeemed who were in paradise and took them to his permanent dwelling in the heavens. These were people like Abraham, David, Joshua, Daniel, Lazarus, and the thief on the cross, everyone who had been justified by faith. Another way to interpret Ephesians 4 is that in the 3 days between death and resurrection, Jesus defeated and imprisoned our spiritual enemies, namely, the devil, death, and the curse of sin. He then ascended on high, meaning he returned victorious to heaven, like God. This interpretation is also grounded in Matthew 12, verse 40, which says, "For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, just as Jonah was assigned to the Ninevites." Matthew 12, verse 39.